All right, so we'll go ahead and call this meeting to order at 3:01 p.m. Good afternoon. My name is DK Nilo, chair of this Midway-Pacific Highway Community Planning Group. As we look at our agenda, we've got minutes. We've got minutes to approve. I know I sent around a few months worth of minutes, so apologies for falling behind, but we're all working to get up to speed. I hope everyone's had a chance to look over our March, April, May meeting minutes. Excuse me, March, April, May. Anyone has any questions, comments, edits?
I have a question about voting. I was out of town doing my Rocky Mountain High in May. So I'm not going to be voting. I don't vote on those, right?
Correct. You would abstain since you were absent. What we'll do is we'll take each of the individual meetings by month, right? So we'll have a motion.
That's why I wanted to let you know. Okay.
That was definitely on my to-do list. So hearing no other questions, suggested edits, I'll go ahead and make a motion that we approve our March minutes. Can I get a second from anyone?
I'll second it.
There we go. Thank you, Judy. All in favor of the March minutes, say aye. 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 Chuck?
Aye.
Thank you, Jason. Yeah. Karen, is that a yes?
I'm not sure. Did I go on the board in March or did I go on in April?
That was the meeting that we voted you on. So you were present.
Okay. Then yes.
Yeah, you'd be good there. Any abstentions or opposition votes for the March minutes? Okay, hearing none, we'll consider those approved. April, I'll go ahead and make a motion for our April minutes. Can I get a second for those?
I'll second it.
There we go. Thank you, Karen, with the second there. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Jason,
aye.
Okay. Any abstentions or nays? Hearing none, April is approved unanimous. And then for May minutes, I will go ahead and make that motion as well to approve our May minutes. Can I get a second?
I'll second that one.
Oh, go for it.
Chuck,
that one. DK, yeah.
Okay, cool. Chuck, do you podcast in your spare time?
I do.
Okay, I was gonna say, that is a professional looking apparatus you have there. I like it.
Thank you.
All in favor of approving our May minutes? Aye.
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 Okay, we know Judy is abstaining this month. That's good. Any nays? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and consider those approved. All right, well, thank you very much, Jason. I wanna give you a special shout out for helping get all of those minutes for the last few months in order. We appreciate your work there. We've got a few more months to catch up, but I think we'll be good by October. Moving right on ahead, we do have an opportunity for non-agenda public comment. So if you have anything that you'd like to share, any questions, any concerns you'd like to bring this board's attention, now is the time. Barbara Gordon, I see your hand up. Hello, welcome. Carry on.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to share some concerns with you because this last week, the City Council voted to make changes to the 42 neighboring planning groups. And the city said these changes were made to diversify the membership and make it better organized. I think these changes were sparked by the complaints from the city auditor and the grand jury that the planning groups were unprofessional, unpredictable, and not adequately transparent, if I can speak. These changes will then eliminate the neighborhood groups from appealing different development projects for free. Now, the appeal now will be $1,000, which I think could really hurt some planning groups. These changes will tighten term limits, including the requirement that a member who hits the cap of 8 or 9 years will be ineligible to serve for a year. It also the requirement to say that a board's group to vote in a board election will be softened, kind of eliminate that the members must attend planning group meetings. The group will now have to revise their bylaws to designate seats for renters, nonprofit groups, and other organizations, and create a recruitment plan. I feel these can be not the most welcoming changes. And some are saying that this is development driven in effort to squash some of the opposition to the housing density projects. I'm just concerned that, low income areas may be overwhelmed and forced out of existence. And so I just wanted to let you know the next piece, the CPC meeting is next Tuesday at 6 o'clock. And I would encourage anyone interested in attending to share your concerns regarding these changes. So just wanted to let everybody know.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Barbara. We appreciate that. We've been tracking that as well. I represent this group here at CPC. So it's been a process and we saw it coming. I don't think there's any way to avoid it. And so, yeah, to your point, I think our next order of business is to find a way to maintain the momentum that we've built as a community and make sure that our voice is heard every step of the way. So thank you for that. Matt, welcome. Hello. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing well. Thanks for having me, DK. So I'm here to bring up a safety concern on Sports Arena Boulevard. So as a bicyclist or someone using the bicycle lane, perhaps on a scooter, as someone is going westbound on Sports Arena Boulevard, crossing the intersection onto West Point Loma Boulevard, there is basically an unmarked forced merge between cars in the right lane and that bicycle lane that just disappears. Mm-hmm. I'm a member of the Peninsula Community Planning Board and sit on the Transportation Committee. I had penned a letter asking for board approval to prioritize this problem for Jen Campbell's budget solicitations that are going to be due at the end of this month. Mm-hmm. Through a service request in the city has already identified this intersection as being dangerous and needing improvement. So the engineers have already identified this. They just need funding to carry out the plan. And in conversation with city engineers, we talked about the possibility of just fixing this with basically a bike box where there's a little bit of paint so that bikes can queue in front of cars and just get into and clear out of that intersection, rather quickly and basically prevent that forced merge before it happens. I was unable to be at the Peninsula Community Planning Board meeting last week, and it seems as though they have supported this letter, but they wanted to do it conditionally with support from the Midway Planning Group. So I'm here to ask if y'all could consider this as an action item today to see if you would approve and support for this request. It's not a capital improvement project level request. It's much smaller, basically paint and moving one of the loop detectors for triggering sensors at the intersection.
Definitely. Thank you for that. And yeah, you and I have kind of connected over the last couple of weeks on this issue. This intersection, for those of you who are unfamiliar, is right on the actual intersection of both the Midway-Pacific Highway Community Planning Area and the Peninsula Planning Area. That West Point Loma, once you cross over, it kind of becomes Peninsula. So I don't believe, based on how the agenda was put out, that we can add an action item today, but I did want to kind of just flow briefly for the good of the order and for the group here. So I don't want the motion as it was made last week to prevent our support from ultimately approving your letter, right? Because the deadline for this budget solicitation is September 30th, if I'm not mistaken. So the end of this month. I think the board saw me send out a survey last week, 2 weeks ago, from the D2 office about high-level priorities. This is sort of in line with that. And like I said, I don't think that we're formally authorized to take action on this, but if there is anyone else who doesn't want safety improvements, I think now's a great time to raise your hand, because I think that we can sort of just conditionally approve it, or I'm happy to sign on as an individual. Matt, whatever we can do to help support this, I think it makes a ton of sense. We just want to make sure that we're conducting ourselves according to the law.
I understand, and thank you for that. Perhaps Nicole or Margaret, since they would have been at the meeting last week, might be able to comment on what our board requires. But I think they may have set it up a way that we may not be able to send it without your board's approval. I'm still trying to figure this out.
The way I read the letter that you sent, it seems as though we just need concurrence. And I don't know that that requires a full motion, but yeah, Nicole, you were there for that conversation. I missed that part, but if there's anything that you can help us understand, I think that'd
DK, I have a comment.
Yeah, go for it.
That intersection, I had the city come out in 2016, November, and we walked around. And that was when we started looking at things like changing parking and a lot of these things that are now getting the budget were originally being taken care of by the last administration, and then some things changed. In that interim, we also went through the Midway plan update. The plan update actually changes that entire intersection when all the development is underway and things. That whole intersection, if I'm not mistaken, and I may not remember it correctly because I haven't looked at that for a while, but it seems to me that they were going to redo that entire intersection. In the interim, we do have changes coming to that crosswalk. I personally will not support adding any more bike things there, because when the city came out to, I think 2019, and suddenly changed all those bike lanes, they've caused a lot of problems. They've caused hindrance with evacuation routes from the coastal cities and stuff like, the coastal region. So personally, I'm just saying that whole intersection is being addressed going way back years now. And personally, I don't want to mess with it anymore right now, because I don't want to stop the process that we are about to have to complete the safety for pedestrians and this community of over 700 senior citizens, as well as guests and people coming and going, the visitors to the sports arena there, Pechanga Arena. We have a change plan happening for safety right now, and I am adamantly opposed to doing anything to change any of that process. I want to see this stuff completed for the safety of my community here first and foremost, because there's going to be additional long-term changes made in the future anyway. And we need to have higher safety standards put in as soon as possible for the pedestrians. And Amy will attest to this because she had just gotten on the board, and when we had the previous administration out that day, we addressed a whole lot of things that needed to be done. And I want to see those completed. Enough said.
Thank you for that comment, Judy. I pulled up the letter that I believe your board approved, Matt. I see, Margaret, your hand is up first. You were at that meeting. Do you want to kind of just give us a quick bit of context?
Yeah, and I'm also on the Traffic and Transportation Committee, and how this came about is that we do have quite a bit of cyclists on the peninsula traveling through the Midway district, both from Point Loma and OB. We didn't want to step on Midway's toes. That's why unanimously, except for one person, decided that we wanted to revert back to Midway Planning Board to see if this is something that you agreed upon before we moved forward with approving this letter. The letter was approved only if you, Midway Planning Board, agreed that you wanted this letter to be sent on our behalf. So if you and that's why I think it should be an action item, because Judy pointed out, her concerns, her feelings, which are most definitely valid. And that's what we wanted to do, was respect this board and the neighbors in Midway District to see if this is something you want or not.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that, Margaret. Thank you very much. Nicole, I see your hand is up as well on this item. Oh, you might be on mute still.
Thank you. And thanks for getting me in between dead phones and dead iPads. Thank you all for listening to Matt and this request, and Margaret for overview. The board did support with a motion that it was contingent on your vote. So in a sense, we were asking, as an emergency item, just to hit in that budget request item that Jen Campbell's gonna put in. Now, I completely agree with Judy that this intersection is completely a mess as it is, and we have a world-class bikeway coming to our new West Mission Bay Bridge, along with some traffic, transportation. That corridor from that bridge up to that intersection is a huge project, and I would actually request that you reach out to the project manager for the that is truly a CIP and get a presentation to this group as it is currently being resurfaced and trying to improve. So Judy, just a couple things on, like, when we improve places for people to bike, it improves traffic and transportation and safety for everybody. And I know you think I'm foolish, but when you decrease the traffic volumes and speeds down, then I want safe places for people to walk. And that intersection is huge. So there is a lot of conversation what really needs to be done at that intersection. I've actually been at this board for a couple of years talking about improvements, because honestly, I actually won't come to Midway anymore and visit those businesses, because you know what, it's actually too dangerous to bike until, you know, there is a section there. Matt has, you know, there's a lot of us that actually still want to go through that area or have jobs in that area. So it is important. I actually am super happy that this committee, I think it was 3 years ago, asked for like a couple removals of parking spots in Sports Arena. And that has created a really safe place for me to access that area. And so I want us to have perspectives of safety for all of us. And although this is a really, really minor thing, and I don't want to debate on all of it right now, I really want that bigger improvement for that intersection. So let's get the project manager out here and try to make this part of the project and move this forward in some aspect. But sorry that we didn't get this agendized and properly noticed and identified as a conversation. So thank you.
No, that's my apologies. Matt definitely reached out ahead of the traffic committee last week to bring this to my attention. I attended the traffic committee last week. I was on the full board for a little bit and then I had to drop off. And then by the time I had to send this agenda, I hadn't circled back. So I'll take responsibility for that. Matt, Nicole, Margaret, all of you Peninsula folks, I can circle back with you and talk about what we can do. But yeah, like I said, as the moment, or as this meeting has come, that item is not agendized for action. So
I think Amy has a comment.
Amy, hello.
Yeah, hey, yeah, sorry I was late. Hey, my thinking on this is, you know, I'm all for as much safety as we can possibly have, but, and I'm all for helping people on bikes. I like to bike too, to be safe, and that whole area is a mess. And I understand what Judy's saying. She wants us to move forward on this. But my thought, it comes back to the other side of it, which is the pedestrian element of this.
Exactly.
Same kind of thing. It's like, well, I'm willing to make a deal. Let's keep the bikers safe, and let's also keep the pedestrians safe, because I got video. I've been videoing when I walk over to Grocery Outlet from the Orchard, how many cars will not let me go on the crosswalk where there's a sign. There's a crosswalk. They have to yield. They never yield. I mean, car after car after car, until I jump out aggressively and give them a hairy eyeball. Well, a little person on a walker is not going to do that. And a lot of times if they do go out there, they're kind of, you know, trying just to get their little wheelchairs and things out on there. They're focusing on that. A car is just not even seeing them, and they'll slam right into them. I can't tell you people got hit at our property at that little area there. I think we need flashing lights for pedestrians. I think we also need a safer thing for all the bike riders and the scooters and all the things that everybody wants us to do to be green. I think that whole corner is a huge danger for anyone who isn't anything but a vehicle. I think it's dangerous.
Yeah, I was just going to agree with you there. In my mind, bike safety infrastructure is pedestrian safety infrastructure. There's not a ton of difference that a 4-ton car it sees between someone on their
right. I agree with you on that. Yeah, but
and
the difference is where they are located. You know, so you have to have different things for the bike than you do for the pedestrian.
Quite possible, yeah. And so ultimately, I think this is part of a wider conversation. One that I think we may get into when we get into one of our later items on the agenda, as far as like how can we be proactive in our approach and our engagement with the city and all the different relevant jurisdictions to identify different intersections where there may be some of these subpar infrastructure pieces at the moment, and then ultimately find ways to fund, which is the biggest thing. I think we can identify things quite easily. I think we can even plan and maybe even do some design, but funding for construction typically is really where that bottleneck is. And so that's why I respect and recognize the request for the District 2 Council office to prioritize infrastructure at this specific intersection. But yeah, part of an ongoing conversation. And so
I'm not sure it's infrastructure so much, though.
Yeah,
Signage saying that you're going to get a ticket if you don't yield to a pedestrian might be cost a little bit of money, but it's not huge infrastructure. Or the flashing lights that you see in PB that I think work great, and maybe more police action to pull people over when they see they're not letting a pedestrian just walk across the street. I mean, if we really, I mean, there's signage already there. If we really adhere to the laws that are already in place, that might, it might be effective too. I don't know.
Yeah, no, we've got rules on the books that need enforcement, that's for sure. I don't want to belabor this point too much because this is non-agenda comment and we do have quite the agenda in front of us, but my general stance is that, like I said, all of these safety improvements are of high priority to us all. I think we can have a wider conversation about what we do where and when, right? What is already ongoing, what has been studied, what has been designed so far. And Nicole, I think you brought up a good point. We should have presentations from the city detailing exactly what the current status of all of our different infrastructure intersections are, and whether that's signage, whether that's flashing lights, whether that's road changing, sidewalks, street lights, all of it. We have quite the list of things here in Midway. So I'll put a final point on that for now. Yes, you could get final word briefly on this one, and then we can talk about
I'd like to just again reiterate that intersection. We debated and we spoke to engineers, we had presentations when this whole Midway plan update was redone and then voted, and then it was approved and done in November 2018. There will be significant changes to it. In the interim, we have, again, going back to requests that I started with the rep from the past administration, then brought Amy into the discussion on it, and we took a look at it, we presented, and we've been ongoing to get those done. I looked at, you sent us an email earlier today from Makana, I believe, what's been approved to go into the budget, it looks like, is not still exactly what we wanted there, but it's way better than what's there right now, which was only a very small improvement done 2 years ago. And so it isn't, what I'm saying is that I don't personally want us to use a lot of energy on specifically looking at the bike thing when there's a whole bunch of other safety issues coming, changes and improvements on the way anyway. Where we ought to be focusing is getting the city to stop stalling and belaboring this whole process we've gone through. You know what I'm talking about. And let's get this stuff going and let's get the redevelopment underway, because with that redevelopment comes significant changes to that intersection, to other things. And this whole community is going to be much more vibrant, safer for everybody. But we keep getting, sidelined by these little things, and not everything that has been done has improved it for everybody. So I reiterate, bikers and pedestrians are not the same. They have similar needs, but let's take care of the community that lives here, visits here on a regular basis, and isn't just passing through once in a while. We've never even tracked the number of bikes going through there before they made other changes that took away some safety issues between here and the coast anyway. So that's all.
Okay.
Anyway.
Thank you, Judah. I know this is an issue that you're passionate about, so I appreciate you bringing that passion to this conversation. But we will move forward. Non-agenda comment, now is the time. If anyone has any other non-agenda comments, seeing none, I actually have a comment of my own. At our last meeting, we had some non-agenda comment about the Education First School that is here and some of the activity that's going on after hours. On the back of that conversation, I sort of took it upon myself to reach out to the leadership of that school. I was able to make contact with some of their leadership, and I actually invited someone to come join us today. So I'd like to turn the floor over to Malcolm Thomas, who serves at the EF school. And just to briefly introduce yourself, I don't think we're gonna go and sort of dig up old wounds about the past, but I definitely wanna make sure that folks know who you are and that you have your contact info shared with this group so that we can be in touch with you going further forward.
Absolutely. Thanks you, DK. And it was a pleasure meeting you when you came out to our school and given a chance to give you a tour of our school. Again, as he stated, my name is Malcolm Thomas. I'm the new campus safety manager here at EF International Schools. And yes, since I've been here, one of my main priorities was to hire more personnel, more campus safety officers, and deal with issues with shadow lawn behind the park, Liberty Station, and other things that have been going on in the neighborhood. My personal contact information I can give you is 626-712-3942. That's my personal cell phone. Again, it's 626-712-3942. And I'd be happy to address any concerns that you have that may come your way. Thank you.
Thank you, Malcolm, for taking some time to join us today, and we appreciate your time. So now, with the non-agenda comment being closed, we will now move on in the agenda to government reports. I did forward along the District 2 report that just came in about 2:30. Makana said he couldn't make it, but some of the things that he highlighted were some of the improvements that have currently been done. Judy, Amy, I know that there's been ongoing conversations between the council office and the orchards. I don't think we need to get into that right this second, but it looks like there's some movement there, which is better than no movement. And so we'll leave it at that. I don't see Makana, excuse me, I don't see Kohta either. Nancy from the planning department, I don't see, neither do I see David Surwilo, but I do see Lisa Jones from the Housing Commission. Lisa, hello, welcome.
Hi, you were going through them so fast, DK. I was like, oh no, I'm up, I'm not ready.
Oh no, I mean,
I will pull myself together. I am ready. Hi, everybody. I just wanted to give you an update on the Rosecrans shelter. So this is the one that went up a week ago, Monday. Sorry, I'm having problems here. There we go. Hi. hello. So this was the one, there was a press event on the 9th. DK, I know that I believe the mayor's office reached out, so there was some opportunity to see the site. The maximum number of beds at this site is 150 since Monday of last week, so just over a week and a half now. There have been 138 intakes into this site, 76% of which were all from the Midway area. So the majority of folks coming from the Midway area. Right now, there are 119 at the site. I think people are aware this is one of those sites where we're also triaging people into other systems of care. So folks that came in and that were assessed through behavioral health that wanted to engage in behavioral health resources, residential treatment facilities, anything like that, Safe Haven, or even the harm reduction shelter might be a better fit. We will expect to see movement like that into other systems of care, but we also know that there's some turnover. So someone might come in. We've seen that with the harm reduction shelter, with the Midway folks that have come in, that they might end up back out on the street. We have alpha outreach teams re-engaging with folks if they do come into shelter, and either bringing them back into shelter, or if there is some place they'd like to go, taking them to that location. So trying to mitigate any impact to the neighborhood specifically through both the CHART team and the alpha outreach team, that we provide transportation opportunities. So we specifically funded 2 outreach positions that were focused on transportation and getting people connected to wherever they wanted to be, so that we did not have a situation that if someone, for instance, came from downtown and then decided not to stay, they couldn't get back to downtown and then be another impact in the Midway area. So that was very intentionally built out that way. I know we've been communicating for almost the last year now, it seems. And I, based on the conversations that we'd had around the harm reduction shelter, I very intentionally built that sort of outreach ambassador component into this project. So that's where we're at right now. We're going to continue to track the number of intakes that come from the Midway area. So you have that percentage available. I can share that when we meet on a monthly basis. But other than that, it's going pretty well so far.
Okay, thank you very much. And just to reiterate, you said there have been 130 something intakes with 73% from Midway?
138 with 76%. So 105 from the Midway area alone.
Wow. Okay. Thank you. Yeah, those are the stats that we like to keep close to the top. So thank you for always.
Happy to do it. We don't, that isn't collected in the traditional homeless management information system, but we've asked the operator to specifically track it because we know that's important to this group.
Appreciate it very much. Any questions for Lisa? Okay. Seeing none, we will move forward. Thank you very much, Lisa.
Take care, all.
Yep. Rebecca Smith from County Supervisor Tara Lawson-Remer. I think I saw you in here. There you are.
Hi, nice to be here with you all. Just have a couple quick announcements from the county side of things. So kids across San Diego County are heading back to school. As that happens, Supervisor Lawson-Remer is really focusing on ensuring that childcare and early childhood education is more accessible and affordable. The pandemic made things so much harder for parents. That includes the fact that many childcare centers closed due to staffing shortages. 3 out of 4 local parents are having difficulties finding affordable childcare in their area. So without a change, too many kids are being held back from reaching their full potential, and many parents are forced out of the workforce, amplifying inequities from day one. So Supervisor Lawson-Remer is really advocating, along with Congressman Mike Levin, that the county invest federal funding from the American Rescue Plan into the local child care community. We hope that you'll join us when the time comes to urge approval of this package. And then second, Supervisor is working to staff up and build out the county's behavioral health system. The county just voted to create dozens of acute psychiatric care beds at Alvarado Hospital. Many of us have loved ones who deal with mental health or substance use issues, and sometimes it becomes a crisis. So these beds at Alvarado are a huge part of the solution. And that is all I have for you today. I'll put my email in the chat below. Feel free to reach out to our office if you ever have any questions regarding this or any other issues in District 3. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much. I have 2 quick questions actually myself, and if anyone else has them, feel free to raise your hand. You just mentioned the beds at the Alvarado Medical Center. So that was like a relocation of a previous effort to go somewhere in Hillcrest Uptown area, and you're moving that activity to the Alvarado Center. Is that what's going on there?
I think that is correct, but I'm not 100% sure. I can definitely give you the contact of the person that would know in my office on the logistics of that.
That would be appreciated. I'm just curious as to the operations of that site versus the site that we have here in Midway, right here off Rosecrans. What's different? What's the same?
Yeah.
Is there any sort of transfer of patients or movement between those 2 sites whatsoever?
Definitely. Yeah, I can. I'll give you Amanda Berry's contact information. She's our behavioral health advisor. So
I know Amanda well. One other quick question. Last week's Board of Supervisors meeting, I think on Wednesday, there was an item about the San Diego River and EIFD connecting Ocean Beach to Julian. Can you touch a little bit on that and share with the group what the impact of that might be for us?
Sure. Yeah. So it's definitely a work in process. So what that board letter did was just approve starting to research and see if we can create the EIFD. We will definitely need partnership with the city of San Diego. And then we'll be able to hopefully leverage funding for those improvements along San Diego River Park Pathway, which we know spans from the coast all the way over to Santee. So it touches a lot of folks. Yeah, I will definitely maybe speak with staff and get some additional updates and see what's going on now that that board letter has been approved. But that's generally what it does right now, is just kind of directed staff to now go and figure it all out.
Okay, cool. Well, to the extent that we can be part of that process, I think we'd like to be. The EIFD, that's an enhanced infrastructure financing district. I know one of those is articulated in our community plan, and we're obviously keeping a close eye on that as well. So thank you for that update.
Definitely.
All right, moving on. I see Cole Reed from State Senator Toni Atkins, State Pro Tem. Hello, Cole, how are you?
I'm hanging in there. Thanks for asking. So good afternoon, everyone. I have an update regarding Senator's legislation that was signed into law. So last month was a very busy month for the state legislature. They worked on moving hundreds of bills onto the governor's desk, where he currently has until the end of this month to act on all of them. Senator Atkins so far has 5 bills that are waiting on for the governor to act on them, and 3 of them have been signed into law. The first bill I want to cover is called Senate Bill 1020, which was co-authored with a few other state senators. This is a big climate bill, but I'd say the most significant part of this legislation is that it establishes a clear renewable energy goals for 2035 and 2040. The next bill I want to briefly cover is Senate Bill 1027, which is regarding the San Diego River Conservancy. This bill does a few things. It expands the jurisdiction of this conservancy from 90% of the San Diego River watershed to cover the whole watershed. It also expands the governing board of this agency, and it also makes direct reference to the indigenous Kumeyaay who have lived on this land for thousands of years. The last bill I want to cover is called Senate Bill 1041. What this legislation will do is it will provide a permanent sales tax exemption to nonprofit thrift stores located on military installations. There's currently a temporary sales tax exemption for these nonprofits. So this would just make this exemption permanent. And it would just give these nonprofits just the same exemption that we see organizations like Goodwill and the Salvation Army have in our state. These nonprofits do a whole lot. One nonprofit, for example, is called the Navy Marine Corps Relief Society, and it provides direct aid to veterans, active duty service members, and their families. That's all I have for my update. With that, though, I'm happy to take any input or any questions.
All right, thank you, Cole. Do you have any questions for the Pro Tem's office? Okay, hearing none. Cole, I guess I had a quick question. Obviously, to your point, we're kind of at the end of this legislative cycle, but if we as a planning group or just citizens of San Diego are interested in influencing policy going further forward into the next cycle, what's the best way for us to start that process?
It depends on what you'd mean by that. If you want to suggest a bill proposal, feel free to contact me. Now's actually the best time if you want either the senator or your local assembly member to author new legislation. Now's a really good time to propose legislation. Usually, we'll see new bills get introduced at the very beginning of the legislative session. In terms of how to influence policy now for the bills that are sitting on the governor's desk, the best way to influence that is going to be by contacting the governor's office via phone, email, or fax.
Okay. Cool. Thank you, Cole.
Yeah, of course.
We love civics. I didn't see Miki Holmes from Chris Ward's office. If you're here, correct me, please. I did see Samantha, though, Keo, from Congressman Scott Peters. Sam, hello, welcome.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. We currently have no updates for today's meeting, but if anybody has anything for me, I'll be happy to take that. Or if you wanted to connect offline, I'm also available.
Thank you very much. Questions for Scott Peters' office? Seeing none, we will proceed to SANDAG. Jack Christensen, I believe, is with us today. Hello, Jack.
Hi, everybody. It's been a while. Super nice to be back. Give you an update, quick update from SANDAG. Wanted to let all of you know that we have our heads down. It's grant season right now. So we have been applying pretty ferociously to every kind of grant opportunity at all different levels of government to try and bring as much investment to the region from state and federal levels as possible. So you may have seen in the news, we just received $150 million through a grant opportunity for the Otay Mesa East Port of Entry project. That's going to help support the development of the actual port of entry facility and then the commercial vehicle enforcement facility down at the new port of entry. And then thanks to Cole and Senator Atkins for helping secure $300 million for the LoSAN project. That's to get the tracks off of the Del Mar bluffs, given the recent bluff collapses over the last couple of years. So we now will be able to get that project fully environmentally cleared so that we have a construction ready project in a pretty expedited timeline. So we're very grateful for that money. Moving over to the Central Mobility Hub project. I know we have spoken a lot about this project, particularly with this group. Ever since we updated the board in July, we continue to analyze all the different options for the best possible transit connection to the airport for the region. So that study is ongoing. We are hoping to get that study finalized in the next couple of months, hopefully month, and then bringing that information to the board and the public with the different types of benefits and trade-offs with each of the different options that we're considering. We have a board meeting on Friday. You may have heard of this whole road usage charge. Well, the board is going to take up a pretty robust, I can imagine, discussion on this road usage charge. In the regional plan and come in, but we welcome all of you to participate in that dialogue as well. And then another really cool milestone just to put on your radars, I mentioned the Otay Mesa East Port of Entry project with the grant funding that we just received. Well, we are going to hit another huge milestone on October 14th. So this project is a really cool project. It's a dynamically tolled port of entry so that folks who are crossing the border, mostly freight, will never have to wait more than 20 minutes. So if you cross the border at any kind of regular frequency, you know that crossing the border takes a ton of time, sometimes hours. I've sat in that border wait time traffic for about 6 hours once. So the idea of being able to pay to make sure that I have to cross in 20 minutes or less is very attractive. And that's really what we're trying to do. We see that there are a lot of freight folks who are transferring goods between the maquiladoras down in Tijuana through over the border, have to wait in hours and hours of traffic, which have major economic losses, major air impacts to the communities that surround that area. And so this border project really solves a variety of different policy issues. So we're really excited about it. And with the revenues that are going to be collected, SANDAG is going to be the agency that's going to distribute those between the US and Mexico. And so the board on October 14th, again, invite all of you to listen in and participate. We're going to ask for approval for that revenue sharing agreement, which is one of the final milestones for that project. So we anticipate construction lasting about 2 years, and then we will have a third border crossing in the San Diego region. So that's all I have. Happy to take any questions, and thanks for giving me some time.
Thank you very much, Jack. It's good to see you here again. It's been far too long.
Yeah.
But yeah, glad to see you. Seeing no other questions for Jack, we'll say thanks one more time. I do see Kohta from the mayor's office is here, but at this point, we'll just run through and circle back around. So Muska, you are still up next, and yeah, welcome.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. I do have one quick update on the OTC Naval revitalization project. For those who have signed up for the newsletter through the website, you would have received an update as well. The Navy added a web page on the project website for that, and it's called the developer solicitation, and that's where all that information is available for all the potential developers or any other interested parties. As you recall from the past meetings, I've mentioned that the Navy is planning to hire a master developer in the next 3 months. That is still the goal, so that they could come up with some options for OTC. In the next coming months, we are also planning to host a open house for all the developers and provide some more information on Navy's requirement, on what we have done so far. So again, if you haven't done so already, I will encourage you to go to the project website and sign up for the to receive newsletters, and that's where all the updates will be available and the dates for the public open house that the Navy, or the industry day that the Navy is planning to host. We will be back next month with a more thorough brief on this project. I know it has been a while, and so for now, that's all the update I have. But next month, we will be able to give you a more thorough brief on the project. Thank you, DK.
Awesome. Thank you, Muska. And yes, and just, I mean, I don't want to put you on the spot, but we've been going back and forth on email about having a formal presentation on next month's agenda. I think we're still good for October. And so we're looking forward for that update. Do you know who from the Navy will be present for that, Muska?
Definitely Greg Geisen, who is with NAVWAR, but also Captain Franklin. They're just moving things around his schedule, so I'm pretty confident he should be able to be here. But if not, Greg is very well versed on the project.
That's true. Okay. Thank you very much. So we'll look forward to that. Last and certainly not least, Jim, actually second to last really, but Jim, welcome. MCRD, hello, how are you?
Thanks a lot, DK. Doing well. Just a couple of things. It's been a while since I've been here, so just to give you a short report on what we're doing at the depot. Not a lot of people have an opportunity, I think, from the neighborhood to kind of peek in behind the fences of MCRD San Diego. Although if there's a desire to do so, I'd be happy to take a group from the community planning group and take you guys there on a Friday morning, see a graduation, and kind of see what we do. If there's interest in that, please let me know, and I'll set it up. But as far as routine activity on the depot, last Friday, we graduated 501 new Marines. We have about 6,000 or so recruits in training currently. So there's a lot of activity going on that relatively small patch of ground. With each one of these graduations that we do, we have thousands of parents and family members and loved ones that come in the area. Many of which spend some time and money in the Midway area. I hope they're not a nuisance at all, but they're value added. Typically, they're pretty well behaved. Again, about 6,000 recruits on deck right now. And while you may have heard about the troubles with military recruiting, we're on track to meet our recruiting goals this year. We're aiming at an end strength of about 177,000, and we think we're gonna get that. So our shipping is going to be okay. Next year will still be a tough year when it comes to recruiting, but we look to do okay there too. The first conversation we had on the traffic issues on the intersection just kind of led me to say we're working on one small thing with the city. If you guys are familiar with the curve on Barnett Avenue, right by Truxton Road, where the entrance to Liberty Station is, you kind of swing around that area. We've had probably 5 cars in the last 18 months or so kind of go through that curve and end up through our fence on the depot. Now, probably a little alcohol associated with the speed that caused that, but nevertheless, we've had it there. Working with the city, and what they're telling us is they're going to improve some of the traffic signs and things to put in place some safety issues and signage to try to help take care of that. So Department of Transportation actually did an investigation, went out, looked at it, said, yep, there's some things that we need to change and do. So they're taking a look and they're being responsive and doing that. As you well know, DK, on another kind of local Midway issue, we drafted a couple of letters of support for SANDAG. For the PACTAC project, which is a long name, Pacific Highway Coastal Rail Trail Airport Connection project. We think it's going to do some good things as far as mobility and safety around MCRD San Diego. So we're on board and happy to draft those letters of support for SANDAG and the project, so you can work on that grant funding to come in. And finally, just a couple of quick dates that you guys might want to be aware of. The end of this week, 23 to 25 September, is the Miramar Air Show for anybody who might want to go up there. Not MCRD San Diego, but it's my Marine brothers and sisters, and so I'll let you guys know about it. They put on a pretty good show. Also on the 25th of September, right in Liberty Station, the MCRD band will be performing 12 to 1300, noon till 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And that's in conjunction with an activity called ForceCon, which is a 3-day thing that's going on. And finally, on the 22nd of October, put it on your calendars, we're running the boot camp challenge on the depot for the first time in a few years. So that's it's about a 3-mile obstacle run with the DIs out there offering a little encouragement to get folks through through the course. It's a good time to come out and kind of see what's on the depot and to challenge yourself a little bit physically. And you can get information on that at bootcampchallenge.com. You can register bootcampchallenge.com. That's it. Any questions?
Thank you very much, Jim. Judy, I see your hand up, but I know you got to run, so we'll go to you first.
Yeah, thank you, Jim, for the update. And for anybody here that has never taken the time to go to the Marine Corps Recruit Depot Museum, I highly encourage you to. It's a work in progress. I have a dear friend who volunteers there and does a lot of woodworking and support there. And I've gone through and had docents, give me some really incredible stories. And I would just highly encourage you to get involved. There's a lot of things like Jim was mentioning that the public is welcome to come to attend. And thankfully that's happening again post-COVID. Mm-hmm. So I encourage you to do that. And thank you so much for the updates, Jim, and letting us know what's going on there. I appreciate it as the daughter of a drill instructor from the Korean conflict. I love it. Thanks.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you, Jim. And if there's any additional info that you and I can connect with, and I'll disseminate to the rest of the group about some of those different events. I personally have never been on base there at the depot and would love a tour, but we can definitely talk about that going further forward.
Okay, we'll work on that.
Cool, thank you. And now we'll cycle back up to the top of our rundown. Kohta, I did see you come in here from the mayor's office. Thank you for making some time. I know you have to leave at 4, so yeah, the floor is yours.
I'll make my report quick. Thank you, DK. Kohta Zaiser from Mayor Gloria's office. I have a handful of really quick updates for you guys. Just last week, the governor signed into law the Care Court initiative that he announced earlier this year. Mayor Gloria flew up there to help support at that event. This is really intended for the hardest to reach unsheltered individuals who are oftentimes suffering from the worst mental health issues. These are folks who typically can't get into a regular shelter, whether because they can't make that decision or it's just not the right fit for them. So they oftentimes end up in a jail cell, a hospital emergency room, or right back on the streets. So what this is essentially an intermediary step before conservatorship, which is kind of the most extreme level of care where the courts take guardianship over an individual. Conservatorship has a lot of tight requirements and a very small eligibility pool. And so oftentimes somebody has to reach the worst of the worst to be even qualified for that type of service. Care Court is a junior step. It's a step below that, has a much wider eligibility pool, and folks can get referred by friends and family, outreach workers, first responders, and it's really intended to get them treatment before they reach those most extreme levels of mental health problems. It is court mandated care for up to 2 years, at which point somebody is reassessed and they'll determine if a shelter is best for them, permanent supportive housing, or maybe conservatorship. But really, again, it's intended to get folks and get them the help that they need before they're too far gone. The implementation date that the state has put forward is October 1st of 2023. It's going to take a lot of coordination at a local level to set up all these services and these systems. The first phase of counties has to be implemented by next October. We are in the first phase of counties just because we've been such a vocal city and leader in this discussion to really get this service out of here in San Diego. So we're looking forward to having this so that way the folks who continuously refuse service or maybe not in a position mentally to be able to accept shelter or help have another option for them rather than just staying on the streets in San Diego. This week, we also announced the purchase of a new non-congregate shelter in the Little Italy area. It's right behind the county admin building. It's an old hotel that we're going to be refurbishing to about 40 non-congregate rooms, so separate rooms where an individual has kind of their own place to stay. We also just announced a new safe lot that will be opening in the Rose Canyon area. This is if you're going to that Costco over on Morena Boulevard, it's right in that area. It's a city facility that will be converting and using some of that space for a safe lot, which for, I know the Midway area, vehicle habitation is a huge issue. All the RVs over on Hancock and other side streets in the Midway area. So this is a resource for them where folks can go, park there without having to worry about a fine or a citation. And it's a fairly industrial area, a nice secured place for them. We also made some improvements in and around the Orchard senior apartments. This was a request from the Orchard Senior Living Facility. Councilmember Campbell was a big advocate for it as well. Sorry, give me 1 sec. I'm just going to read off some of the actions that we took in that area. So ones that we've already taken: Hancock and Sports Arena, we implemented lead pedestrian interval crossing. So basically folks have a little bit more time to cross the street. We also had some flashing don't walk times updated. Sorry guys, I'm getting blown up by calls right now. Over on the Midway Drive and Sports Arena Boulevard, we also implemented flashing don't walk signs and updated the timing there. We do have a few work orders that are still pending over at Midway and Sports Arena Boulevard and West Point Loma Boulevard. We'll be implementing a flashing red beacon for stop signs southbound, and then the installation of a yield to pedestrian signs and yield line markings for westbound traffic. And then there's 3 other improvements that we are committed to implementing, but the work orders just haven't been created yet. These are a lot of soft improvements. They're not huge roadway changes, but they're small changes just so the folks that live in that area have a little bit more time to cross these busy streets and are a little bit more protected as they go to shopping or restaurants or things like that in the area. So several improvements already committed and done, and a handful of others that are still upcoming. But I think it's a big win for the council office as well as the Orchard residents and the folks who live in that area. Those were all of the updates I had. I'm more than happy to take any questions.
Cool. Yeah, thank you very much. I wish you'd been here at the top of our meeting. We had a little sidebar about that intersection that you just mentioned. I believe that's probably why Amy's hand is up, so we'll go to Amy first. Amy, you're still on mute, but you should be able to unmute.
Hey, there I am. Okay. Sorry about that. Hey, so are you saying the crosswalk between the Orchard Apartments, that little area, like say you're heading west down Sports Arena towards Point Loma, or going towards the 8 or Ingram or whatever, that little crosswalk there, you're going to have flashing lights there for those folks?
Yeah, it's a lot of info and I really brushed through everything. So DK, I'll send you this response that has every little item and all the details for each of the improvements. And then you can share it with the group.
If that's the case, I just want to say thank you, because honestly, this is a huge problem for our property.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. And I think DK, you were out there with the council member, saw a bunch of illegal turns. You see the issue as it is, and especially for that population where they do take a little bit longer to cross the street. That's a busy, dangerous intersection. So these are the soft improvements we can do right now to at least offer some relief.
Yeah, much appreciated. I know you're close on time, so we'll go to Todd first and then to Evan and see if we can keep you for maybe an extra minute or 2.
Yeah, I'll keep mine quick. Am I to assume that the notification for the homeless people for these shelters, especially on Hancock, will be told to them in person, or how do they notify these people?
So it's a lot of when enforcement occurs. So when neighborhood policing is out there or when Western Division is out there, this is another resource that they can offer. And so the safe lot at the Rose Canyon hasn't been active or open just yet. That's the site that we're moving forward with. But yeah, that communication will be going out to folks, and it's another tool that we have as we're doing enforcement of vehicle habitation and being out in the community.
Okay, and transport for them, are they going to be provided transport for all their belongings, or are they going to have to make it there themselves?
Typically the folks that are, with the vehicles, they take their entire cars. And
a lot of them don't have vehicles.
Yeah, typically a lot of the shelters do have transportation provided. I know the Midway shelter, the one that just opened, the Sprung shelter on Rosecrans, that's a 24-hour intake. So folks can go there and be referred there at all times. And typically the outreach providers that are on site or SDPD's hot team, they all have vans and transportation with it. Oftentimes, if they have too many items, we typically take them to storage centers. I don't know the nearest storage center to the Midway area, but I can find that out. But there are options for folks to be able to keep their belongings or have them stored somewhere.
All right, one last comment, because it is unbelievably bad on Hancock, and it is blighting the whole area, as everybody knows. So thank you for your response.
Evan, please.
First, thank you for being here. Second, unrelated to anything else that we've discussed immediately on this call, but I know recently the Civic Core Revitalization Committee was formed informed, but I haven't been able to find anything about recurring meetings and when those are scheduled. So if that's something you can pass along to DK for those of us to join and listen into, that would be great.
Will do. Yeah, those will be public meetings. They are going to be publicly noticed. We'll adhere to the Brown Act. I think they just had their first meeting on Monday to kind of set the agenda moving forward. Yeah, I'll send you all the info. I have an email I can send you afterwards. DK, if it's okay with you, I'm just going to send all those items to you, and if you could share them with the group.
Yeah, comes with the territory. Thank you very much, Kohta. And I didn't want to, like I said, get away from the focus of non-agenda comment, but Kohta mentioned a lot of those updates and upgrades at that same intersection that we were talking about at the top of the meeting. Myself, the council member, and Makana, who typically represents District 2, back in June went and did a full site walkthrough, identified different crosswalks, identified some of those soft fixes that he just referred to. Something as simple as changing the time that the light blinks for when you do have the right of way to cross as a pedestrian. Those are changes that are being done now, right? Based off of what we have now, and are very low lit. So to the extent that we can continue doing those types of things, I definitely would want to encourage everyone to be proactive in their outreach, to whether it's to me, the council office, however, we can do things, right? As long as we work collaboratively. And so I just want to say thanks one more time to the mayor's office, to the council office, and to the folks at the Orchards primarily, right, for initiating that conversation, because there's been a lot of changes there in the last just few weeks alone. And with that, I believe, Evan, is your hand still up, or is that's from the last question? Okay, yeah, so I think we're done with government reports. Thanks, Kohta, we'll be in touch. And now we can move forward with our agenda. We do have a couple more items to get through, but we're about on time actually somehow. So I listed as an informational item this topic of the sports arena. I think it's something that we've, as a planning group, been obviously dealing with this conversation for 4 or 5 years now, since even before my time on the planning group. In the last few weeks, there have been some updates. And so I just want to touch on that and then kind of open it up to the board for comments, questions, feedback. I think that we have a lot of work ahead of us, as much as we've done so much so far to get here. But over the last few months, we've obviously seen presentations from all 5 different groups here at this board. The city has gone through a process of whittling down the various different bid teams, and now we have our sort of final selector, I should say. That's the Midway Rising group. So at City Council last week, Tuesday, about 8 days ago, the action that was carried forward by that group was to basically authenticate the mayor's, I guess, choice or selection of Midway Rising and enter into what is called an exclusive negotiating agreement, right? That's a 2-year period, a period up to 2 years, where the Midway Rising folks will gain access to the site. They'll be able to do some due diligence, start to do some very, very, very preliminary environmental work, and start to get a sense for what that project might look like. I'm aware, based off what we saw last time around when Brookfield had their process, and the Faulkner administration had sort of initiated that I just think that if we're not proactive as a community group, we run the risk of potentially being left out of that conversation. I feel as though we've been in this conversation since definitely the Glory administration has taken office. And so I kind of just wanted to, like I said, take a step back, turn it over to, the folks who are part of this group, the Chucks, the Karens, the folks who are very familiar with the site and the community overall, and just kind of get a sense for what your feel for the process has been today, and then ultimately what you want us to do as a board. I have a couple ideas, but I want to kind of kick it over to the board first before I tip my cap. So if there's anyone, Jason or Chuck, maybe I'll call on you, Chuck, since you've got the apparatus there. But just your sense for the process for how we got down to this Midway Rising group so far, and ultimately what you want us to see, what you want this group to do with respect to that development going further forward.
I appreciate that, DK. Thank you very much. The process is what it is. We're here where we're at. We have an exclusive negotiating agreement with Midway Rising. So yeah, I think it behooves us to try to work with them to get as many of our items out of the community plan into their plan. Having said that, and I defer to the group in terms of how much work we want to do now versus waiting and watching what's going to happen at the election. And so clearly, we could put a lot of time into it over the next month, and then the election may just say, hey, you guys need to take another step back and wait. If the item is not passed Clearly, I think the whole project is put on hold again, although I think the city intends to continue to move forward, even if the proposition doesn't pass muster at the polls. And I think that they would want the developer to continue to move forward, thinking that in another 2 years, they would bring the project forward. So I defer to the group in terms of how much we want to engage before the election versus after the election. I had heard, I'm going to share a little bit, DK. My son had indicated that Midway-Pacific did reach out to you, which I think is great. But maybe I shouldn't steal your thunder. Maybe I'll let you talk about some of that. Because I do have one concern about what you identified to my son about the other group that they want to form. I do have one issue about that. So, but I'll let you bring that issue up.
Okay.
Yeah. So
cool.
my
Thank you,
concern is how much do we want to do now, or do we want to wait till after the election? So
yeah.
We've been down this road. How many times have we been down this road before?
I've lost count. My gut is also to sit tight until after the election, but I think you are right that progress will continue to move forward, even if this Measure C now, as we're calling it this time around, somehow doesn't carry over.
Right.
There probably will be something, even if it's just for that specific site, as opposed to the overall community, that will address the feasibility of going above 30. And so we can obviously, I think, like I said, my gut is to sit back for the immediate short term, but I do think that we should probably be somewhat proactive in our time between now and then and start to identify just what those high level priorities are and what we'd like to see carried forward. But Karen, do you have any?
I'm supportive of that.
Thank you. Any thoughts or opinions, Karen?
No, I honestly think we should just wait because I have no idea what's going to happen in November, and I don't want to put a lot of energy into it and have a big open discussion, and then it's just moved for another couple of years.
Agreed. Todd, any thoughts?
Yeah, I have to agree with that as well, because it just seems a lot of wheels spinning, and I think we're all kind of exhausted from it. And my place right here is just a block over, so I'm anticipating seeing something happening here. But let's wait.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair. I think what Chuck was referring to, I talk to his son Anthony all the time. I think he's about my age. And we just kind of keep each other looped into what we do know. But one of the, I guess, I don't know if it's an addendum to the motion or sort of caveats that was included in that motion last week at council was a requirement for this group, this Midway Rising group, to report back to the city's Land Use and Housing Committee on a quarterly basis. And also, as I understand it, to the full city council on a quarterly basis. And also to conduct their own independent publicly noticed meeting on a quarterly basis. So that group has quite a bit of work cut out for it. And what I put, as you saw in the agenda, was for us to kind of just consider today. We don't need to necessarily take action on it today. It's listed as an info item. But as they do eventually start to get their arms wrapped around all of their obligations as far as the city is concerned, I think it's very important, like I said, for us to be prominent in that conversation. So my sort of soft suggestion that I'll seed here now and wait to see how things go over the next few months is that we consider instituting an ad hoc subcommittee. And as you know, we don't have any standing subcommittees for this group, but we do have the ability to initiate ad hoc committees. Those things have sort of date-specific deadlines or sort of sunset dates, if you will. And they're meant to have a very specific focus, right? And so my thought could be or would be that a group like this would be focused on the traffic and transportation, the parks and open spaces design, implementation, to the extent that we can look at funding opportunities and funding mechanisms. According to our bylaws, an ad hoc committee can include members who are not part of the board, but must include a majority of board members. So if we say had 5 people who are willing to do the work from this group, we could have up to 4 people from, outside the group as part of that. I agree. Frankly, I'm tired. I feel like we've been talking about this for so long, and I don't have necessarily a ton of enthusiasm to take action right this second, but I've watched this process long enough to know where some of the pivot points are and where some of the opportunities for us to leverage the the momentum that we do have, right? And the status that we do have. The fact that we do have quite close communications and working relationships with both our city council office and our mayor's office at this point, I would consider to be a strength of ours. And so while, yes, there are things that are happening about community planning groups, as Barbara mentioned at the top of the thing, they're not going anywhere, frankly. And they've only ever been advisory, right? We have no real authority. In my opinion, we have the ability to influence things to the extent that folks who make decisions are willing to take on board the feedback that we provide. So I'm looking at that and keeping an eye open. I don't know if it'll be an October item or maybe a November item, since we meet after the election in November. But I did just want to have, since it's fresh, just happened last week, I wanted to have a chance to kind of air it out here and then ultimately see where we're all going. Margaret, I see your hand up. Please feel free to unmute yourself.
Thank you. I appreciate that ad hoc committee. As we know, it's not just impacting Midway. The Peninsula and Ocean Beach is really, looking forward to being part of the discussions and, developments and all the impacts and the pros, cons. So if you do create that ad hoc committee, I'd love to be part of that, just because I sit on many different groups and boards within, Peninsula, Midway, and OB. And I think getting different representation from the neighboring communities would be very positive and helpful, because right now I know I can speak for many neighbors because I do manage quite a bit of social media pages for the communities that people are just not enough in the know. Although you guys have been very transparent with the process, people are just not feeling like, they're involved in this project that's coming through. So I think having different people from different communities, Point Loma, OB, and Midway, would definitely help keep the process positive and, and getting back to the community and having them participate somehow, some way.
Yeah. So that's a point well made. Margaret, I do everything I can to attend the OB and Point Loma groups and just have a general pulse. I would, in sort of, I guess, my mind's eye, see at least one representative from each of our neighboring planning areas being part of this, assuming we actually go in that direction. Like I said, we have a few different milestones and hurdles to get through, which obviously includes, the commitment from members of this board to even take that action in the first place. So yeah, if we wind up going for it, Margaret, obviously you, Fred, the folks in the Peninsula, you'll be part of that process for sure.
Thanks, so, I appreciate it.
Yeah. Not seeing any other questions or comments. I think we can move forward to our action item for today. Oh yeah, Chuck.
So
I
stepped away for a second. So I just wanted to, and I heard a good portion of what you said. So my concern, DK, is with the prior developer, they ran their own ad hoc committee. And now this developer is asking you or us to take control of that ad hoc committee. And so I just want to know, no, is that not the truth? Is that?
Not quite. And so you're right. Brookfield, that previous developer, I think they called it the Community Advisory Board.
Right.
And you were on it. A few of us were on that. The city, as part of that city council process, from what I understood from that motion, like I said, requires them to go to a publicly noticed meeting on a quarterly basis. That is independent of the Land Use and Housing Committee and also independent of the full city council. I don't know if what I'm talking about as far as our ad hoc committee would fulfill the requirements of their motion as the other public meeting, but at the very least, I would want us to, as a community group, like I said, take the initiative and make sure that when they do have those meetings, that at every step of the way, our voices are there. And so that's really kind of the thrust behind what I'm talking about. But there is, to my knowledge, they're not asking us to do this, right? And they're not asking us to do this for them.
Okay.
I'm curious about potential synergies, sure, but no, there's been no ask of them to us to lead this on their behalf.
I appreciate the clarification. I guess my concern still is how the ad hoc committee interfaces with the Midway Planning Board, and all of that, in terms of, does the ad hoc committee make a recommendation to the planning board? I mean, we would want to have our voice as a planning committee to make our to give our recommendations to land use and housing and the city council.
Yeah.
And that could be different. I would hope it not be, but it could be different than what the ad hoc committee comes up with. So that's what I just wanted to voice that as a potential area of conflict between the ad hoc committee and the actual official board of the planning group. Yes.
That's a fair point. And Chuck, to my understanding, is as I read the bylaws, it's the full board that sort of initiates and ultimately directs this ad hoc committee.
Okay.
So it would be almost as a subsidiary, if you want to use that word, of this body that we're a part of here. So that ad hoc committee, however it's eventually potentially put together, would serve as, you know, sort of at the direction of our group. We certainly would supersede them. They would bring whatever motions or recommendations to us for us to then ultimately either, you know, agree with, comply with, edit, whatever. But yeah, that is the relationship as I understand it, according to the bylaws.
So kind of similar like what we did with Naval, or we created that subcommittee. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, no worries. Thank you. Okay. All right. So with that being done, I think we'll put a pin in the idea for now as far as implementing that subcommittee. But I do like the idea of having it be focused, like I said, not just on the site and the project site itself, but on some of the wider connections, a lot of the safety for pedestrians and cyclists, realistically around the entirety of the community. We had talked about briefly this enhanced infrastructure financing district. It's deep in the weeds, but suffice it to say, once you implement one of these things, it can be a very potential funding mechanism. And so I'm very aware of the fact that as our tax base grows and potentially as this height limit thing goes away, we're going to have more dollars to play with than we've had historically, right? And so to the extent that we can get our priorities in a row and put in front of, you know, whether it's the council office, the mayor's office, whoever ultimately is in charge of capitalizing these various projects, I think that kind of work, it's never too early to start, right? I guess I'm not thrilled about it at the moment, but it is important. I think there's a place for us to lead that conversation. And that being said, we'll transition into our next item because we need reinforcements for our board. We have a few vacancies that we've had for far too long. I am excited, I think, to share that we have had one member, oh, there she goes, one member is hiding, of our community who has expressed interest in potentially taking on one of our vacant board seats. And so Rebecca, if you're still willing, please feel free to, maybe just for the sake of the record, reintroduce yourself, tell us who you are, how you qualify for the board, and yeah, if you'd be still willing to join us.
Sure. Thank you so much for offering that to me. My name's Rebecca. My computer was about to die, so I wasn't trying to ditch out on any responsibilities. So just plugging the computer back in. But I'm the owner of a new business. We're currently renovating the old Hollywood Tans building right on the corner of Midway and Kemper. It's just been a vacant, you know, hangout spot for the last several years. So I was a massage therapist, have been a massage educator for the last 15 years, had my own private practice, and I'm going to be opening this place with sensory deprivation, cabins, massage, skincare, healing and wellness. So a nice little place for everybody to land. And I'm just really excited to beautify this little corner of Midway that so desperately needs it. Yeah, and I really enjoy learning from everybody in these meetings. And I just really hope to be a good steward for our community. I'm just going to be down there, you know, 16 to 18 hours out of the day for the next couple of years. And it's really important for me to just, again, you know, I'm in the business that I'm in because I want to help improve people's lives. And anyway, and I want that to ripple out into my community as well. If I can help improve the community, whatever way I can, I really like just listening to everybody and seeing what's important to them and being a voice that I can be. So I really appreciate being asked by you, DK. And again, yeah, I just learned so much and really appreciate the discourse that I've had with everybody in the meetings that I've been attending over this past year or so.
Awesome. Yeah, no, thank you. It's funny. I was going through all these old minutes of trying to get ready for today, and I saw that you had presented, I think, at our March meeting. And that was maybe your, I don't know if it was your first or definitely as far back as March you've been here. So for at least 6 months, I'd say you've been a regular of the board. And at this point, if you've got that kind of time and dedication, we'll take it, right? And so I'm happy to make a motion that we appoint you to one of our vacant seats. We have a few different, and I'll maybe take a step back and do an overview of how our board is constituted. We have 12 members. Each of us is serving 3-year terms that run sort of year over year. So there might be someone from 2021 to 2024, 2022 to 2025, 2023 to 2026, and then that cycle will repeat, right? And so the vacancies that we have are all of the terms that are ending March 2023. So technically, Rebecca, you'd be being appointed for a 6-month term. Right. Typically in March is when we have our general elections. And at that point, you would sort of come on for a full term. Being appointed to a vacancy does not impact your eligibility to run. So typically you have 2 consecutive terms back to back, and then you have to take a cooling off year. So you can basically go up to 6 years and call it 6 months based off of just the timing of when this board seat is open. So I'm happy to make that motion. I think as long as we have a second, we still have enough for a quorum based off of our current quote of 9. Our board seats, well, we have 3 vacancies, so we're looking for 3 seats. I think we can get our 10th one today, though. So if I can get a second, I would love it. Todd, I see that hand. We'll call it a second. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Todd.
Thank you. And just for the sake of the record, can we get, I guess I'll call the order. DK is a yes. Todd? Yes, I see that. Jason?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank
Amy?
you.
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Karen?
Yes.
Thank you. Chuck seems to have vacated for the moment, but I know he'll be back and we can confirm that he is in support of this motion. So once he gets back, we'll get to that. But thank you very much. Thank you, Rebecca, like I said, for joining us. I think I've sent you all the information, but if you have any other questions, feel free. One thing, since he's still here, I want to make sure that I call out the fact that both Malcolm and Evan, I think Evan is a resident of this community as well. I've invited them both. As you all well know, you need to attend at least 1 meeting before you're even eligible to fill a vacancy. And so, you know, I don't think anyone's ready to commit today, and that's totally fine. But I'm not above a little bit of peer pressure in soliciting your support. Like I said, we have a lot.
Try to get 2 seats here today is what you're saying?
Look, man, if there's one thing I am, it's pragmatic, right? And I think if we can count today at the very least as a formal attendance, then maybe in October we can fully adopt these 2 gentlemen. But, you know, that's obviously subject to their commitment to facilitate that role.
Real quick, Rebecca, I would say, do you live in the area or is your business open now? I know you were hitting a lot of delays. Getting the thumbs up in the city.
Thank you. It's a moving target for sure, but I think we're going to be really close to opening maybe mid-November now. Stardust Boat Spa, and I do live in Point Loma over by Dana Middle School, so I'm literally a 5-minute drive from my new place of business, and I've just been going around and meeting all the other business owners in the area as well. There's a lot of great people working really hard in the area. And yeah, I'm really excited just to be a part of some of this change that is inevitable, you know, as slowly as the wheels turn sometimes, it is happening little by little, you know, so I'm really excited to be a part of the community. And again, just, I love, you know, just going through, as I nerd out on that planning committee, the plan from 2018 that was adopted. I was like, gosh, if we can really make this happen over here, it'll be amazing. So I just hope I live to see it.
Yeah, you and me both. I joined this board, I think the meeting right after City Council adopted our community plan, and since then, for the last 4 years now, it's been you know an odyssey and a quest that we're on is to implement that vision. So thank you, like I said, one more time. Sounds like November will be a date, so maybe we'll do a tour of that, and then we'll
if you see me around there, stop by, you know, say hey, you know, be careful. Don't wear your sandals around there.
Fair. Yeah, not yet.
We'll be ready for the public soon. So yeah, we're really looking forward to it.
Fair enough. Yeah, once maybe if we do that tour of MCRD, we'll come by and decompress over at your place.
There you go. I was thinking about that. Oh, I need to get Jim on board. I'm sure he's stressed out graduating all those Marines. Get everybody over there, floating, relaxing. Yeah.
Good. Okay, cool. Well, it's official. Jason, I think you've got that in the minutes, and we can obviously circulate all of those. after this meeting, but with no other hands or questions on that item, I'm just going to keep us rolling. We might be out of here by 5. We are now into the portion that is designated as the CPC report. I'm in charge of that, so I'll just kind of recap that as I typically do. We also go dark in August as CPC, but at our July meeting, I think that was one of the first meetings, I think it was the first meeting that our new CPC chair was in charge of from the get-go, and so that's Andrea Schlageter. She chairs the Ocean Beach group, and then for the record, for those of you who might be unfamiliar with all the different acronyms we're always using, CPGs are community planning groups, that's what this is. CPC is the Community Planners Committee. That's sort of like the Knights of the Round Table thing that we also do once a month. So each one of the different 42 groups from across the city sends one representative. It used to be down at City Hall. We used to meet in person. Now it's still on Zoom. And so I represent our group there and have since basically the day I joined the board. And so at those different meetings, we kind of talk about citywide issues, whether it's code updates, whether it's policy changes, whether it's council hearings that affect us. So with that sort of primer there, I'll say once more that at our last meeting at CPC, we were, like I said, we're governed by Andrea, who's a close friend of ours and our office, our neighbor here. We had 2 different items in front of us. One was a land development code update. The other one was the creation of an affordable housing subcommittee for CPC. The land development code, that's the thing that happens every year. They're always looking for different suggestions or updates to the existing documents, kind of like a living document. Like I said, they tweak it a little bit every year. I think the majority of the focus of this most recent one was about the various different cannabis facilities across town. And so keep an eye out on that. That's a process that, I said, it happens every year. It's kind of always in some various different portion of its process throughout any given year. But I believe that gets updated or finalized in December at the full city council. And then the other one, like I said, this affordable housing subcommittee. So I guess our neighbors on the other side of the 8 in Linda Vista, they have, for a long time, in the last 2 years, it sounds like, had a subcommittee of their own, specifically looking at ways that they could promote the construction and development of affordable housing. And so they have compiled a report. It's quite comprehensive. It has a bunch of different, like I said, different policies or code updates or different suggestions for how to incentivize affordable housing. And they basically brought that to the full CPC and then went so far as to create a CPC subcommittee. And so I think I volunteered for that. I haven't seen an agenda for it, but as that group comes together, I'll be sure to update you on what happens there. But that was the gist of it. For the first time ever, we were done by like 7 o'clock. These meetings start at 6 and they're never done before 8:30. And so I'm starting to like Andrea's style because she just bangs it out. And I think I was like, the sun was still out when I finished. It's the first time ever. But that's it for CPC report. If anyone has any questions, happy to answer those. Otherwise, we'll just roll through into the chair report, which is also a thing that I do. So let me just look at my notes. Okay, yeah, so I was gonna bring up both the letter of support from the Peninsula Planning Group, since unfortunately, honestly, I feel really bad at it. They had asked me to include it as an action item today. It's my fault that it wasn't done properly. But I think what we can do further forward as requests for support letters from our board come forward, we will want to make sure that we get those in the hopper or agendized. One thing that we've never really done as a group here is initiate our own board letters for different things, whether it's capital improvement priorities. I shouldn't say never, but not often enough. I think it's safe to say I don't see us being that proactive. And so that subcommittee I talked about earlier, part of me being wanting to be more proactive, that comes from there. But I think also we should be aware that we're well within our rights as a planning group to start to just take the initiative, right? I think sometimes subcommittees can be helpful for more granular conversations that can then be sort of sorted out by the members of those groups before they come to the full board. And so maybe going further forward, I know for sure some of the pedestrian and bicycle conflicts that we have with various different intersections, that's something that's been on my radar for a long time. We've done little things here and there. I don't think anything that we've done is enough, frankly. And so that's one thing I want to keep an eye out for. But other than that, we also did get a request for support for that county River Park project that I mentioned. The reason I asked that representative from the county is because that request came to me too late to even consider bringing it to the board here. And so what I basically did is I just wrote a letter of support myself as an individual. I don't really like to do that. Well, I don't like to speak on behalf of the board, so I have to write it as an individual. when it comes in that sense. And so just, because there are a couple of these things that came up, I figured I'd throw that in the report. The only other thing I have as an update for you all is that we do have a YouTube channel now. All of these Zoom meetings are recorded. And so I upload them once they're done sort of loading to a YouTube channel now. It's, I think it's just youtube.com/MPHCPG, but I will send that out and I'll probably start including a link to that in either the minutes or the agenda or just somewhere more regularly so that all of our interactions are archived. Other than that, that's it for my chair report. Happy to take any questions there. And seeing none, we can proceed to any new business. Anyone have any new business they want to bring in front of this board?
Actually, to go back, sorry, DK. I was going to say, I did have thoughts on that before, as far as when we do get something, even the SCUP review we had the other day. I don't know, again, if that's just, we probably can't have any kind of minimum time frame we need, but it would be nice to get that information in one meeting, talk about it, and then have the vote the next meeting. Obviously, we see these things for people talk for 5 minutes. We're supposed to decide and yes or no. Like, we haven't looked at anything yet. We know we haven't gotten it. They might have sent it to us ahead of time, but still would like to be able to talk them through it, say we'll vote next time, information item first, then we'll make it an action item. But we can't just go straight to action items for those big kind of decisions, I think. But again, I don't know how other groups do it, but I know some other groups have just ad hoc committees for any of the CUPs or any permitting type issues that come into the city. So that group will look at them, make a recommendation, talk it through at the regular meetings, and the regular board votes on it.
Yeah.
And just I don't know what that structure is supposed to be, but
yeah. Sorry, just to clarify, you're talking about the Point Loma intersection request, or?
No, not even that. Well, I mean that too, but I know that some other groups have like landing, again, a zoning and land use committee. So again, any big project review, comes like that, right? It just goes to them first. They talk to the people from the city kind of directly, get all the basic details, give it a once over, and then again have at least a general understanding before it goes to the whole group. But again, we don't get a lot of those every month, but it would be nice to have some sort of lead time.
Yeah, I think that's also part of, like I said, where at least my thought for that the sports arena oriented, and like it's more like sports arena and like associated impacts ad hoc committee that I was thinking, largely because of the fact that we don't, according to our bylaws, we don't have any standing committees. Right? We have the election subcommittee that picks up, once a year, and that's kind of it, unless we have an issue like Naval from a few years ago or something like this. And because of just how we're structured, and I think, honestly, I think because of the lack of action and activity in this community for a long time,
right,
we haven't really had the need for some of those formalized processes. But clearly, we're in the crosshairs of the winds of change, if you will, right? So things are going to be happening
for the future.
We see them coming. I think we just need to kind of come to consensus on how we want to deal with those. And so for me, because unless we amend our bylaws, like there's no way for us to initiate standing committees. And so when I looked at the, I guess the term length for that ENA, it seemed appropriate to tether an ad hoc committee to something like that. But yeah, I agree that to the extent that I honestly probably know or hear things early, or at least earlier than sometimes they come up to this board. So I know I can do a better job of disseminating. Like I said, that like the budget request that we got from District 2, I think that came into my inbox and 20 minutes later I had forwarded it to everyone else. So stuff like that, that's easy.
Yeah, and I know we can't have discussion outside the meeting, but at least it's just
that's just like word of mouth sharing of information stuff. And so,
but even if it's probably not. I don't know if that again falls on the chair. Your responsibility once for them to get it to us, or can we tell them, hey, you got to get this to all board members, a week before the meeting or something.
At least, right? So
I guess our emails aren't public, but somehow you could tell them, hey, let us know.
I can, and if anyone is, so there's a few different, obviously, like sign up forms that are out there for various different updates. And I can maybe share some of those. That's how I get a lot of the information. I've subscribed to so many different things. Most of it,
I'm on a bunch of them too.
Yeah, but I'm happy to share that information, and just as things come up, we can't have discussion outside, but forwarding an update like a budget request that is due at the end of the month, that's easily enough done. Okay, cool. Good point though. Any other comments, questions, chair report, CPC report? Okay. New business, does anyone have any new business? All right, hearing none. Old business, I don't think we have any old business. The website's a thing. That was one of our trailer old businesses for a while. But yeah, I think that being said, we are done. So thank you, I'll say to everyone for sticking around this whole time. I do see Linda Lucas is here. So Linda, hello, good to see you. Thank you for spending your afternoon with us. Candidate for city council. So just taking your notes, we appreciate it. I don't know if you want to, I mean, I think we can formally adjourn this meeting. And so I'll formally adjourn this meeting now. But if anyone wants to just kind of hang out, feel free.